Hello everybody and welcome to the Radiator Arms, everybody's third favourite fictional automotive themed watering hole. And in today's episode, we're talking about our good buddy Will's first ever track day. So, welcome. Come in, pull up a pew, pour yourself a pint of your favourite beverage. Mine is Pepsi Max. What have you got, Will?
I also happen to have Pepsi Max, so other soft drinks are available.
Yes, they are, particularly if they want to sponsor us.
Exactly.
And to my left, we've got Ant, and you appear to be on the black stuff.
The coffee, yes.
Now, we have talked about track days previously on the podcast. Ant and I discussed it in quite some detail, and in that we talked about my idea for the perfect track day, which subsequently I made a reality. We effectively took the same format that I used for my private invite-only birthday track day, which is hosted at the lovely Blyton Park, very low numbers event, so 24 cars all in. Your average track day can have easily double that, and we basically offered it out to the general public and said, who wants to come along and join us for a nice, good-spirited day, which we designed really as a social event, but with cars. And the hope was to take on this event my Rover 100, better known to many as a Rover Metro. Unfortunately, there's still some work to be done on that, but last minute, Will helped me source a replacement, and we have purchased a Mini Cooper R53. John Cooper Works, specifically,
Yes.
track car, which is a bit of a project that Will has been doing quite a bit of work on. And so I took that to the track day.
And the car I took was the Ferrari 550. That was quite an experience, actually. I want to get a little bit real with everybody here now for a minute. I like to do this from time to time.
Oh, God.
Those who know me know
Do we
that
need to turn the lights down?
we don't need to turn the lights down. I'm not going to focus on this too much, but those who know me know I've had some anxiety issues in my life. A lot of those going around when it comes to traveling and things like that. And I've actually had quite a bit of agoraphobia. This is the longest trip I have taken since 2022, I believe. And it's only 160 miles each way. But what a car to do it in. The 550 is just an ultimate motorway cruiser.
Yeah.
It really is. How many horsepower does that thing have?
485.
That's what I thought. And the engine size, is it 5.5?
Yeah, 5.5 litre, yep.
Yeah, 5.5 V12. Oh, it was just glorious. It's just got oodles of power. The gearbox is lovely. The handbrake does my head in.
Fly-off handbrake in a stupid place, honestly.
Yes. Every time you'd put the handbrake on, the seat would adjust, or you'd try to take it off, the seat would adjust and things like that.
It's almost as though they built the car and then someone said, where's the handbrake? And they were like, oh, shit. Okay, all right. There, we'll put one there.
Do you know what's really annoying, though, is it's also in a similar place in the 355, but it's much easier to get to.
You can see like how people can do long journeys and that, and how the car has so many miles on it. It's on about 106,000 or something like that.
108 or so,
108,
yeah. I'm trying to get to 110 before the end of this year. I mean, the first year I had it, I did 10,000 miles. Yeah. I got it on 92, but the first owner of it did 60,000 miles in the first 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But like you say, you can see how. Like, it is a car that makes 160 miles feel like 60 miles.
It's interesting around town because I actually found the clutch quite heavy at first. And
I was going to ask.
And the accelerator pedal is just like pushing your head against a brick wall in places. But once you get used to it, actually, it's all right. It's one of those cars where you have to pick it up by the scruff of the neck and drive it if you want to drive it.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're cruising along, actually, it's all right. Once you've got it in 6th gear, you're going down the motorway and you've got your foot kind of welded to the 70-mile-an-hour mark, it's all right.
It's also one of those cars that, yeah, from a modern perspective, where we're quite used to all these controls being super light and everything, it's it is quite heavy in that regard. You know, every day is leg day in a 550, right?
It is.
But then your Merc, the throttle pedal is also quite heavy in that, and you need to press it an awful long way for it to do anything.
I've said this before, but I'm not even joking. One of the reasons I actually realised I need to start going to the gym and using like the leg machines was I started getting aches in my leg after driving that Merc, and I was like, look, I am clearly out of shape. And since then, do I lift? I now do lift, bro, so I can drive my Mercedes. And I'm not even joking.
He's not. He's really not.
I had that the first time I drove James's 550. And also at the time,
Actually, when you drove it, the throttle was worse. The throttle was getting worse. Yeah,
it was worse. It was very heavy, and the clutch pedal, I was like, I don't want to drive this in traffic. I just want to get onto the motorway, get it in 6th gear, and just cruise. I don't want to have to touch that again at all.
I got stuck in traffic for an hour with that car once. Yeah, getting out of Bury St Edmunds of all places. Like Bury St Edmunds does not have. It's an hour to walk across Bury St Edmunds, right? Like, and there was some foolishness, shall we say, going on. And the worrying bit there was the clutch pedal was getting longer and longer and longer. And it's like, oh, please let this traffic go soon, because I'm going to have a big problem.
Do you know what? It's funny. I was actually driving through Bury St Edmunds as well, and I got caught in 20 minutes worth of traffic in the 550 because I was taking my wife to pick up. This was when I was driving it a couple of days before to get used to it, taking my wife to pick up her car, which had some service work done. And initially I was like, I don't know if I actually like this car. I genuinely think, I don't know how I get on with it. But as soon as I kind of got used to it, and I then started driving it some more on the trip up there, you know, you come off some like roundabouts, but put it in second and you know, third and stuff. And just the way the power comes on is like, it's not like electrifying like the F12, but it is so satisfying. It's like,
it's that feeling you get when you're in an airplane and the pilot gives it, as my granddad would call it, some welly.
Yes.
You know, and it just pushes you back in the seat. It's not that crazy, savage, like modern turbocharged power delivery. It's just that effortless power. And I tell you what, I kind of get surprised by it every time I go back to drive it after having not driven it for a few months. It really pulls towards the top end as well. Like it
does.
Goes well, that thing. Like it's not slow.
It really isn't, and it's great because once you said you know the gearbox when it's cold is a little bit finicky and stuff. But once it's warm, and then you know you realise you've got to kind of wrestle it into gear a little bit. Once your body gets used to the force you have to put in, my God, is that a rewarding car to drive?
Oh yeah, and the funny thing is that actually, like I say, from a modern perspective, it's quite heavy, quite mechanical, quite a bit of a brutish car to drive. If you were to compare it to the cars that came before it, you'd see that actually, no, Ferrari put a lot of effort into making this a more daily drivable, more usable, friendlier car. But I find every time I drive that car, the first day back is a little bit of culture shock, and you're like, oh, crikey, this is so different. But then after you've driven it for a little bit, you just go, this is great. This is just so good. And like the visibility. Oh my God, the visibility in it. Like every time I get in it, you're like, it's almost like being in a convertible with the roof down. Yeah. Like you can just see everything.
You can.
It's fantastic.
The only thing I found a bit tricky was seeing the end of the boot, so I didn't do much reverse parking in that. Because that is a little bit of a concern, and I was like, I don't want to damage his bodywork on that. That would be horrendous. Please don't. Yeah. And I didn't, but I, you know, the time I spent with it, I enjoyed that. Thank you for letting me drive that. That was an enjoyable experience.
Oh, that's all right.
So a thing that I found with that car as well is that the way that it handles doesn't seem to match up with its size or its weight.
No, it doesn't, does it? It seems more nimble than you'd think it would be.
Yeah. So who took it on track?
I drove it. Well, a few people drove it on track. Did you actually take it around track?
I didn't, because I spent most of my time doing something we'll talk about in a minute.
So, all right, to set the scene, so it's at Blyton Park, great little track. It's like 1.5 miles. It's pretty flat, but actually quite a fun layout. And we had an amazing variety of cars. We did a video on the day. We filmed loads of stuff. We had a few guys come out to help film, 5 Automotive and BH1 doing stills. And we had everything from a Lotus Elise. We had a Lotus XZs, a Series 2 XZs. We had at least one Boxster there. We had 2 Boxsters. I think we had 2 Boxsters. We had Chris and another chap was there, Neil, I think, in his Boxster. We had a Jaguar XFR. We had obviously the 550.
You had the most professional car of them all, the chaps with the Clio that brought the trailer.
Oh my word! Yeah, there was a Clio. I think it's a 172 or a 182. It was basically a Clio Cup car.
Yeah.
I can't remember whether it was an actual Clio Cup car, but for all intents and purposes, Clio Cup car.
The way to describe that was fully track prepped.
Oh yeah.
Fully.
That was a serious car, and there was a chap also with a Clio, I think 197 or 200, which is a bit more road biased car. But it was amazing. Like, we had such a good mixture of different cars.
I have to tell you about my favourite car that was there.
Yep.
It was the orange Honda Jazz, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I think Kieran was the chap's name. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The Honda Jazz brackets, not close brackets, Type R. And he had a great time, though he did cook his brakes.
yes.
Which is easily done, although I think he's now sorted that. Actually, I'm not sure he actually cooked the brakes. I think something else brake related might have had one of the cylinders might have gone on him. But it was fantastic. Like, I think everybody had a pretty good time. I like to think they said that they did, and hope if they didn't, I would like to think they would have told me. But it was a wonderful day, and we brought our latest purchase, which is the Mini. So I think you got out reasonably early on, I think, didn't you? And this Mini, so people know, it's been started by somebody as a track project. So it's a sort of, it's had some of the interior stripped out.
Yes.
It's got a couple of Cobra Monaco Pro bucket seats in it, very basic cage in the back, some harnesses that we had to change out because they were frankly lethal, and it's got some Momo wheels on it. But other than that, it is standard JCW, which is already a great car.
Yeah.
It wasn't the JCW, was it?
Yep.
It was. It was a Cooper S that had a genuine JCW conversion shortly after it was made. I think
Right,
only like
okay.
5,000 or 6,000 miles off its
You
made.
may be getting confused with the JCW GP.
I was thinking that you meant it was a JCW as a model as opposed to JCW modified.
Oh, no. So actually, just for clarity here, for that generation of Mini, the R53, all JCWs are add-on kits. They did not leave the factory, I believe, as a JCW. It was an option you ticked. Later, you bought a Mini John Cooper Works. The first generation, the only one that you actually bought, which was badged like as a John Cooper Works, was the GP, which I drove recently and was quite cool. And I think you'd quite enjoy, actually.
Yes.
Out
It's
of the
different.
box, I think the Cooper S is 160 brake, and with this particular kit, it then takes it up to 200. They did a later one which was 210, but yeah, this one is the 200 horsepower kit. But honestly, it's an absolute riot. I always forget how much fun these cars are, and considering it's very close to standard, like we got a good deal on this car, but for $3 or $4 grand you could basically have what we have, and at a circuit like Blyton, that car is superb.
It's got me to the point, this car, where I want a fairly standard one for the road. Actually, like, you know, if I change or get another car, like add a third one to the fleet, I think it's got to be an R53 Mini, because, you know, I have had so much fun on it. Even in its stripped out kind of guise, you know, just driving it around the local roads at the moment and stuff like that. Absolute blast doing all the testing. But I'll take you back to a little bit about how the car started. So I actually bought the car on James' behalf from somebody I know, and it's been kind of fairly local to me during its lifetime. And the person who I bought it from saw the Metro project and spoke to me and said, "Oh, what's kind of happening with that?" And I spoke a little bit, and I said, "Oh, what's happening with your Mini?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. I think I'm going to sell it. Do you know anybody that might be interested?" And I said, well, initially I was like, "Ant, you kind of need a cheap daily driver. Would you be interested?" And then the words you heard were no MOT, sat for a year or two, and you were like, "I'm out," which is fair enough, because you aren't used to dealing with cars this low on the market. Well, I live there and thrive there. And so does James, actually, in many regards. He likes a cheap motor.
You merely adopted the cheap. Will was born in it. He didn't see a new car until he was nearly a man.
I did not buy my first new car until I was 28 years old.
Yeah, there you go.
So there you go. But yeah, it didn't have an MOT, but I took it and I looked at it, and I just said, the bones of this are pretty good. I got it started up and I looked, there was no smoke out the engine. We had a bit of a weird noise from the pressure plate on the clutch, but after a few times putting a foot in it, it went away. And I think that was just from sitting, and it hasn't come back since. And the clutch doesn't slip or do anything odd.
No.
And yeah, so basically we got it through an MOT. It's got a few advisories on it, but nothing major.
There's like two minor advisories on it, like one of which was easy to sort and one of which is like going to be relatively easy to sort. It did give us some grief, I have to say. The car, like, considering the only reason I sort of bought it was because I was desperately keen to turn up to the first track event in the Metro, because that's what I sort of used to sell it, but it wasn't safe. It was not safe. We could have trailered it there, but I was like, that car I would not feel comfortable being in, and I certainly wouldn't want anyone else being in it either. So, but we are doing it up. We are getting it sorted. We are surrounded by pieces for it as we speak. But the Mini also is being done up for us to use, but also eventually to rent out to initially friends and that, to just get a bit of a flavour for the whole track day thing. And Minis make a great track car. It's relatively lightweight, not compared to the Metro, but compared to most things. We can get all the bits for it, and I think this is a really good time. One of the reasons I'm keen to do it is that it's going to be a nice build series, because I think for people looking to get into the track day thing, the R53 makes such a good basis for a track car. And I think the Minis now are at the same point, I think, where the Metro was 15 years ago. Where they're still relatively plentiful, still lots of parts out there, and I think more so than the Metro. So many bits. You can basically, in fact, Relive, who I know for their sort of BMW work, they actually do a conversion kit where you can take one of these Minis, drive it into his workshop, and I think it's about 13 grand, and he will return you a Mini Challenge car.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like, because they've got lots of race series and things, which is fantastic. So we've got so many bits and pieces to go on that car still to fit, which is just so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, well, when we look at it at the moment, as I said, it's fairly standard. Still got standard suspension on it, which actually I didn't find that bad. Even round track, it seemed okay.
Well, the thing is, for the road, the standard suspension I find is too firm.
Yes.
But on track, it actually worked quite well, to the point where it's a bit too soft. But again, that's something we'll change. Also, it hasn't got a limited slip diff on it at the minute, which is an absolute essential for that kind of car, particularly as we're going into the winter months. But again, for now, it's not really a problem. And it was a laugh, that car.
And the plan is to take it to the next track day, right?
That's correct. In fact, we do have a couple of friends of ours are renting it. So the whole purpose of the first track day was to effectively give it a bit of a shakedown, find out what worked, find out what didn't, and we knew that there were lots and lots of things that we wanted to upgrade about it, but the point was we wanted to work out what order do we need to do these upgrades. And the thing with the Mini is that the last thing I want to touch on is the engine, because it's already got 200 horsepower. It's already got more power than the tyres can cope with on the exit of a bend, certainly without a limited slip diff anyway. And I think the sort of joy of it is having something that, doesn't have too much power, doesn't overwhelm you. But I gotta say, on the road, that thing is a rocket. It's so much fun to drive. It's awesome.
It is one of the most fun cars I've driven on the road. The Celica and the Mini are my two kind of shining JayEmm fleet members at the moment. and I've driven all three of the Ferraris now. I love them. But the ones which I love the most are the Celica and the Mini. The Mini, kids, obviously I had to do the laborious task of making sure it was okay to drive and, ironing out the creases, which meant I had to drive the pants off it basically and see if anything broke. And my Lord, I enjoyed myself. I really did.
It did break though.
Yes, it did break. 6 hours or so after getting the Mini through its MOT, the first one in a couple of years, I was driving it down to Halfords, I think, to get an aerial because I wanted some tunes. And as I was pulling away from a roundabout, I suddenly noticed the car got a lot louder and I could feel exhaust vibrations. And I went, this is a bit odd. So I pulled up when I got there and looked underneath. And the catalytic converter split essentially into at the bit where it joins onto the downpipe. And I was like, for God's sake. to give it credit to my local mechanic who's been helping me out with some bits and bobs, he did manage to weld it up enough so we could actually get it through to the track day. But it was still kind of blowing and not sounding ideal.
It was one of those things which is just frustrating because actually I was planning on replacing the manifold anyway, and on those cars the exhaust is adorably simple because it's a 4-into-1 manifold into a singular cat and then onto a back box. That's it.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing else about it. So we managed to source a really good quality Scorpion stainless steel manifold with a proper fresh sports cat. Which is certainly a better condition than the last cat that was on it.
Absolutely.
And it was less than 600 quid.
Yeah, I tell you what as well. I've been fitting it. I've been filming the process for the JayEmm and Friends channel, of course. And I must say, when you hear the word aftermarket and exhaust, you think, something's not going to fit. Something's going to need cutting, modifying. I'd planned essentially to put a whole week aside, in and out of my normal day job to get this fitted. But actually, I tell you what, it bolted straight up to the engine. There was no problems with fitment. The cat bolt on it bolted straight onto the rest of the midsections, the exhaust. It was brilliant. All we got, we're waiting for now is a couple of new O2 sensors to arrive because the ones that are on the original exhaust are either aftermarket or just the originals and not wanting to come out and damaged anyway. So once that's on, it'll pretty much be done. But that was actually fairly painless in most regards. So, the Scorpion system, thumbs up to that because that is a system that is made to fit and it fits properly.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, first time out on track, did you go alone? Did you have someone with you? And what was it like?
So the first time I actually went out on track, we were doing the tracking shots for the camera. So
Yeah, well, we decided because I wanted to film this event to help promote future ones, we had the media guys down, and the 5 Automotive guys have basic but very effective tracking setup that they put on the back of their little hatchback. And I decided that it would be a really cool opportunity to film the sighting laps because obviously they're at lower speed anyway. One of the best things about Blyton is they're a really friendly, really understanding track when it comes to media stuff. So they're very flexible. Some tracks are just like, nope, we're not interested. Don't do any of this stuff. These guys are great. And so what we did was we got the camera car to line up first. And then I went out, I think, first in the 550, followed by the Mini.
Yeah.
And then everybody else. We had this big snake of all the cars going along. So we did have other people there who were also on their very first track day, so Will wasn't alone in that regard. Part of what we're trying to build is, we've got guys that are like seasoned professionals, effectively, that have just come back from Nürburgring trips and stuff, and people on their first track day, and they all get on, and nobody feels intimidated by more experienced drivers, and nobody feels annoyed by less experienced drivers. That's kind of the idea. But yeah, how did it feel even in those first couple of sighting laps?
Well, I tell you what, it was just a very surreal experience, to be putting the helmet on. In fact, you had to help me with that because I'd never done a helmet before. And I didn't even know how to thread the thing through.
It's like, here, son, it's all right.
Exactly.
Finger on the lip.
Pretty much is. James really was playing dad that day because I was just there like a helpless, lost child. Like, what do I do? But in many regards, actually, I'm kind of the perfect person to test out a day like this because I was, one of the reasons I hadn't been on a track day before was because I was actually kind of like scared of what to do and when and the etiquette and things like that. But because this is so laid back, we had the instruction briefing where people got to ask questions before, and actually on a track like that with loads of visibility, loads of runoff area as well.
Yeah, that is it. And I think that's one of the things I'm really conscious of is that track days are one of those things where when you've done loads of them, it's nice and easy. But when you actually start to think about it, when you do your very first track day, there isn't really much guidance from people on okay, where do you go? What do you do? What do you need to sign? What happens here? You get the briefing, right? Which I see as the equivalent to the briefing you get on an airplane, the safety demonstration, and the whole point of it is that, basically it's the same on effectively every aircraft you get on, and it hasn't really deviated much in the last 30 odd years that I've been flying. And the point of it is you hear it enough times and you just know, put your own oxygen mask on, help yourself before you help others. Do be aware that the nearest exit may in fact be behind you, so on and so forth. And it's the same with the tracks. There will be specific things for each track. For example, Blyton, because it's an anti-clockwise track, you overtake on the right like you would on the road here in Britain. That's not normal for a track. Typically, you'll overtake on the left, basically because you overtake on the outside. And we also, made sure, again, your overtaking rules vary from track day to track day, for operator to circuit and all that. And we basically, operate a policy of like, you overtake on the straights, which is very normal, and with explicit permission, because the other thing you'll also get on track days is you might have an inexperienced driver in a very fast car. So you could have somebody, say, that knows what they're doing in the Mini and somebody that doesn't know what they're doing in a Ferrari. And if you just put your foot down on the straight, you're not going to be able to get past that Ferrari and that Mini. You're not. So you need to help the person behind you get past, pull over, lift off the throttle, indicate, make sure that they know you've seen them. Because we've all seen near misses on track days and things where somebody's pretty certain that the car in front knows that they're there and that they're about to pull over. And nearly every time I've seen a track video of something going wrong on either two wheels or four, like all accidents, it is a series of failures. And what typically happens is the more experienced driver who's behind trying to get past makes the assumption that, oh, that person in the front, they're pulling over and slowing down. That must mean they're letting me past. No, what that might mean is that they're not very good at this. Their line is poor and they're braking far too early. And they've got no idea that you're behind them. You start to go past and all of a sudden they just wash out and then they're into the side of you. Happily, we didn't have anything of the sort on the day because everybody was very good, everybody was very well behaved. And the other thing that we were trying to get people to do is share passenger rides.
Yes.
Because I think that's one of the best things. Also, it gives your own car a bit of time to cool down, which for some cars is more necessary than others. But we had a few cool things there. So Dom, my action accountant, in his Elise does some wild passenger rides. David, a really big supporter of what we've been doing. He was there in his Jaguar Project 7.
So your first time on track, though, you were doing the sighting laps.
Yes.
What I want to know is, what about your first proper laps? Like, was that on your own? Was that with someone else? And what was it like? And for the listeners / viewers' benefit, I wasn't there because I was in Japan, and we're going to be talking about that in the next episode.
Yeah, you get.
So I want to know all about this because I'm quite jealous that I couldn't be there, but at the same time, not that bothered because I was in Japan. So what was it like?
Well, I tell you what it was like. It was, as I said, it was a bit nerve-wracking going out. I went out by myself for the first time because I was kind of doing a few bits of shakedowns of the car as well. And I did better than I thought, to be honest. I had a lot of fun getting to learn the car. I kept the traction control on because, it's one of those things. Yes, it's a front-wheel drive car. It's probably just going to get to oversteer. I doubt it's going to lift off, understeer. I doubt it's going to lift off oversteer and throw me off. But I was like, I'll keep it on, just to see as the day is going. But I was having a riot, It's weird learning to brake differently as you're approaching corners and after a few times getting round and realising, okay, brake a bit heavier here, then lift off kind of. It's a weird one. But I was having so much fun just kind of learning some of the basic lines of the track. Because it's actually a really easy track to kind of get around for a newcomer who's done no track experience. I will say I have played an awful lot of like Forza, Gran Turismo over the years. But obviously, applying some of that to what I was doing on track the first time probably helped. But obviously, they're very different things. What I would say about Blyton Park specifically is it's an easy track to drive, but I reckon it'd probably be quite difficult to actually master, if you know what I mean, to get really fast.
You can memorize the basic layout in a few laps.
Yes.
That's the thing. But to get a good line through it, and of course, one of the joys of track days is the line varies depending on the car that you're in.
Yes.
And so the line you would take in the Mini is a very different line you would take in the Ferrari. And actually, it was quite good fun going out in the Ferrari because, obviously it's got more than double the power of the Mini, but also weighs over half a ton more. Actually does handle, like you say, quite well, but it's a very, very different thing. You know, the 550 you can throw around more than you think you should be able to for a car of its size, but it's still a car of its size. And what I did realize is that the brakes are terrible. You know, the brakes on the 550 are very much period correct 19. I mean, they're fresh discs and pads and everything and all that, but that's just what cars were like back then.
What was the problem? Were they just fading?
They're shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much they're fading, it's just that cars in the 90s, brakes weren't up to much. They never were.
Yeah.
You know, partly it's because of his wheels and that were still relatively small. So, you know, brakes hadn't got that big. Ceramics and things didn't exist. But even so, like, brake technology was just trailing. You got to remember, of course, when the car was also built, the tires weren't as good as what we have now. Tire technology has come on so far. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, modern rubber is the same as slicks back in the day, because it's absolutely not. But what we can get in a road tire now was simply unavailable to a customer even 15 years ago. Like, it's changed immeasurably. And that's the only thing you've then got to think about with that, is that you then start to put pressure on other elements of the car. So with the Mini at the minute, I mean, we knew full well that the brakes were going to be a weak point in it. And that's why, even though we've got a set of semi-slick tyres over there, I'm not fitting them just yet, because at the minute, you put those tyres on, like, the brakes will become even more inadequate. You'll just cook them in a couple of laps.
I cooked them after I actually fixed the Mini, because it did break a track, which we'll talk about in a minute. After I fixed it, and I cooked it. I didn't even think I was being that hard to them. I said, you know, I'm very much a novice at this, and unfortunately, we didn't. You came out with me only briefly, where you were going to give me some pointers. And then the car broke. But before the car broke, we only got 2 or 3 laps. So how did you think I was doing?
So you were definitely carrying more speed than I thought you were going to be, which is great, you know, because your confidence is up. You're feeling happy with the car. Your line was quite far off. But that's fine. It generally is. When it's your first time out on track. I deliberately sent you out there with very little in the way of instruction or recommendation or anything, because I don't know, I quite like to let people, okay, go out there, see what you feel on your own, because you may make mistakes that you instantly go, well, that was wrong, I know how to deal with that, and so on and so forth. And then the idea was, I was going to go out with you, give you some few pointers, and then send somebody else much more experienced than me out with you to then be like, okay, and now here's what you do. And then you'll find, because obviously as we upgrade the car, you get to drive it again, you'll then get to drive the car, and you'll then find, oh my God, there's things I can do with this car that before it couldn't have done. Like, it just couldn't. And the problem with Blyton is, because it's a relatively small circuit,
it's brake heavy.
It's brake heavy, and you would think that somewhere like a Silverstone or Snetterton, which is much larger and much faster, would be harder on brakes. Except the difference is, those big straights are a chance for your brakes to cool down and have a bit of a rest. Blyton doesn't give them that.
Yeah, I did a cool down lap, got in immediately, and I think Ben the Sparkle came up and said, your brakes are on fire. And I went, oh, okay, and I'll go out and do 2 more cool down laps. That's what I ended up doing.
There's like 4 heavy braking zones. 5. 5. Yeah. I went off when I was there last time with the Gallardo, and my claim to fame is I was cornering there so hard that I popped a centre cap.
Yeah. Yeah,
excellent.
Which we then had to comb the track for, because he Googled how much they were. But we were lucky, because it was a left-hand centre cap, and there's only one really big right-hander at Blyton. So we went off, and I think it was Ben actually that found it. Yeah. And we're like, yep, there it is. There's your centre cap.
Well, you know, going back to when we were out on track together, and you didn't really get to do much instructing to me, because the Mini broke.
Yeah, well, basically, we were going along. I think you'd got about three or 4 laps in.
I think it was 3.
And I was starting to think, like, okay, yeah, all right, he's doing all right. But like, I can, you know, me with my limited track knowledge, like, I can definitely give the man some pointers to help, because it's one of the things I've also found is that it's not just a case of, you know, knowing how hard you can accelerate, brake, or whatever. Of course, it's a lot of it is all about setting yourself up for the next bend or for the future, or like knowing where to go. Okay, sacrifice a little bit of your entry here because it gives you an infinitely better exit. And one of the other big things as well, I've still learning on track. And I know it sounds really stupid, and I know people that haven't done much track day stuff will go like, "This is absolutely obvious." But you're like, no, when you get on the track day for the first time, you realize it. Use all the track, like, because first off, if you're not going that hard, well, if you use all of the track, you're even safer. Like, you know, if you start from one side of the track, you go to the inside for the apex, then back to the outside, like, you're safer because you're asking the car to do less. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, if of course you are trying to, you know, go fast, if you didn't need all of the track, well, there was a little bit you'd left on the table. And of course you always want to feel like you're getting a good line in and enjoying yourself.
And there was another thing I think that I noticed a lot when I was there last time is you can turn in a lot later than you think on most of the corners, especially the last one.
So to get us back on track, pun intended, third lap, sat next to Will, being generally, I've got to say, mate, not to blow some smoke up here, but quite impressed with how well you were doing.
Thank you.
And then I heard and felt an odd vibration in the car, and I just thought, what was that? And I sort of looking around, trying to see what it was, because obviously on track, there's all sorts of stuff that can go on that's kind of perfectly innocent. Like, I didn't know whether you'd picked up a bit of marble or something off the track or something like that, which is kind of unusual on a you know, Blyton Park track day in the morning. But then I looked down and saw the battery light was on, and I was like, great. Yeah. My first thought was that we'd shredded an alternator belt, because that's what had happened to me with the F12, which actually indirectly led to exactly where we were. So I thought, I've had a real bad run of luck with alternators of late. Will, I have to say, it sprung into action. We also got in some expert help because there was a race team turned up. And it turns out there'd been a little bit of a communications error on the track's behalf, because this team was there in a McLaren 720S GT3.
No way.
Yep.
Oh, man,
and
so
they
jealous.
were trying to run in a new engine, and they'd asked the track if they could come down and run the engine at lunchtime. However, we had already asked for permission to go and do some more filming at lunchtime, you know, get some more tracking shots and things. Obviously, with me being the one that's paid for the track, it's my call. And ordinarily, on any other day, I would love nothing more than to see a race car whipping around the track at lunchtime, because it's just a cool thing to have happen, right? But I needed to get stuff done. I needed to get work done. So I basically bartered a deal with them that we said, look, can you have a look at this and help investigate? And in exchange for that, you can have half of my lunchtime, and then we'll use the other half for filming. So yeah, they looked, confirmed Will's diagnosis of just dead alternator, not belt, but just dead alternator. Do we have a new belt on it, by the way, or is it?
No, that's the same belt, and the belt had no problems, no frays, no cracks, no nothing. Because I inspected it while we were there before I sent somebody off for the replacement.
Yes, as ever, we got a man in to help us out. So shout out to the lovely Omar,
he's a legend.
who'd actually come down just to basically have a watch, and he's one of the guys who's going to be actually renting the Mini for the next track day. And to be honest, do you know what? The whole reason that we were there with the car was to see what would happen when we took it on track, and make sure that when we did let people drive it, that it was going to be, first off, safe, and of course also reliable for them.
And I thought, well, there's only 3 bolts holding the alternator on, and
I basically turned my back on this man, right? And when I turned around, the whole front end of the car was off.
yeah, I basically said to James, and Omar was there as well, and there was a whole bunch of people as well that the names I've forgotten. You know, there's the guys of the MR2 that broke down. They lent me some bits. I think it was the team with the Clio. They talked a bit. So many people were like saying, if you need a hand with this, I'll help you. And I really appreciate that, because that is kind of the camaraderie on a day like this.
Oh, everyone pitching in, like, we're all rooting for you.
I know there are people that couldn't believe what I was doing at the side of the track, but basically I took the entire front end of the car off, put it into service mode, as I call it, pulled the radiator forward, and I started undoing the alternator. And I said to James and Omar, I went, if somebody can go down to Euro car parts where they've got an alternator in stock and get one, I can fit it trackside.
Yep.
And you were like, well, if this goes wrong, it's your problem to get this back from the track, and they're not going to come and pick it up from here, especially if it's undrivable. And I said,
yeah, because my concern was, like, the car as it was still drivable. It just wasn't charging itself. So you could probably get it to somewhere where you could put some charge in it, or do something, or find a way of living home, or buy another battery, or something like that. Especially in daylight, you probably wouldn't have been able to get the car home with a spare battery.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you've ripped the alternator out and it's gone horribly, horribly wrong, or a bolt has sheared or something like that, you're stuck at the track. But that didn't deter our will.
No. Well, the thing I said, well, I will hand on. The front end was held on with cable ties anyway.
Yeah.
It had been off before. It's a track car. It had some work done, X, Y, Z. So it was easy enough to get the front off. And I looked at these bits and said, okay, these bolts will come off. I'm only undoing bolts which are superficial, really.
Yeah.
Half of them were missing anyway from the front end. Which
we are fixing that.
Yeah, we are fixing that. Don't worry. I'm going over safety stuff. But, it was one of those ones where, okay, they'd all been off before. The alternator had been previously replaced about 3 or 4 years ago with a cheap eBay one, which is why I believe it broke, because it got over revved and hard work, and I think it said nah.
Yeah.
So we put a decent one on there, but I was like, I can make this happen. And that was with a £40 Amazon socket set and one tool borrowed from the race team, which is a set of grips.
Yeah.
And I managed to do it. It's hilarious. I didn't have the belt tension at all, and I thought that was going to be the end of it. But what I did have was the handle to my jack. So I placed that between the underside of the belt tensioner and the chassis rail, and I pushed and got it up enough so it released just enough tension to get the belt off the alternator. And when I put the new one in, we got Chris the Fox to wail down on the jack handle, and I just slipped it over. And I would say there was only about an hour and a half's worth of work there. Yeah. And by just after lunch, I was up and I was out and I was racing it around the track again.
Yep.
And I did a few laps and I brought it back in and said, right, this works. I'm not driving this anymore in case it breaks again, because that can be someone else's problem to get home.
And then, because also it was my problem to get it home.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did take it out on track a couple of times. Really enjoyed it. Just what an incredible car. I love that thing to pieces, considering we paid less than $2,000 for it. I mean, we almost immediately spent $2,000 on it.
Yeah.
The harnesses were about £300. The exhaust manifold was about £600. The alternator was £300. So I think by the time I got home from the track day, I basically spent its purchase cost on it, and we're going to do that probably several times over with the other stuff we've got ordered for it. But just brilliant fun. It's just such a good little car. Like, it's so keen to please the thing, so intuitive, so interactive, so friendly, and it's one of those cars that's very flattering and understanding for novice drivers, because there are cars that I could have put you out in where if you drove it the same way, like, you'd have just been thrown off into the gravel. But the joy of the Mini is the fact that it will help you. It will not just let you fail, but also as you gain experience, you'll understand and you'll appreciate. Like, I guarantee you, come 2 or 3 more sessions in that car, the first thing you'll be doing when you get in it is turning off the traction control, because it's very basic, very early traction control, and you'll realize that actually it is slowing you down. Like, it is actually getting in your way, particularly once we've got a diff on it. Like, that traction goes straight off, like first thing, and you're just gonna have an utter riot in it, and hopefully we all are.
I'm really looking forward to driving it, to be honest, because even though I did reject it, partly because I just didn't think it would be a sensible daily, given that it's got a half cage and bucket seats, although it kind of does appeal to me.
Yeah. What are you talking about, you bad man? You love it.
Yeah. It looks like an absolute hoot, so I'm looking forward to it.
I have to say, as a novice, I really enjoyed driving that car around, and I think the idea of this being a rental car where people who perhaps don't have loads of experience can get into something that's built safely and built well. And obviously, we got the build series are going to be doing it, and I assume there'll be potentially some other companies stepping in to help out with a few things as well.
I mean, we've already been sent a set of semi-slick tyres by the lovely people at Davanti. And the great thing about this, Orange are helping out with parts. I'm talking to other companies as well at the minute. And what's nice about this is it's great to do a build series where, and part of the thing that motivated me to get it is like, the Metro, I'll not beat about the bush. The Metro is being a total pain in the arse because trying to find even basic bits for it is becoming really, really difficult. Now, I am obviously passionate about getting that car on track because it's so special and it's so cool and it's so fun. And I think even compared to the Mini, it's going to be wild. You've driven it. I haven't even driven it.
No, I drove it down to the MOT station and then wished I hadn't when I'd seen all the corrosion on it and seen all the sills fall to pieces. But they are being repaired. They're being repaired properly.
Yeah.
My only concern is I think there's going to be a lot of I have to make some things by hand for this in repair parts. I'm talking about hoses and parts. I had the same thing with my Maestro. Like there was a lower radiator hose on the Maestro that just didn't exist. I had to make some hoses and connectors and clamps to replace this because it was part metal.
Yeah.
And I'm looking in the engine bay of the Metro thinking there's some rusty cooling system.
We can do that. I mean, Hell are helping us out with the Mini, so we've already got a set of new brake lines on the way for it, and an oil cooler. They've made an oil cooler for us.
Oh, excellent.
And they're sending that out. And if you haven't noticed, by the way, all the stuff that's coming is color coded, because I am going to at some point change the color of the car. So it is not going to stay standard.
This is the first even I'm hearing about this.
No. I want this to be a bit of a symbol of like what we are doing, and also it's really cool, I think, to have something that I think is going to be relatively easy for people to follow. So it's going to be like, look, if you want to build one of these, you can. Here's the bits we've got. Here's where we've got them from. Here's how much they cost. Like, you can come and do this, build it, and then bring it on one of our track days.
Well, you've mentioned the potential of potentially having two Minis. One which is like this one, I think, is going to get built really fully.
Yeah, this one, when I'm done with it, is basically going to be a mini challenge car.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty hardcore, but I do like the idea. Maybe we'll talk about, because I know you'd like one for the road. I do like the idea of buying something that is basically a road car with a half cage.
Yeah.
Like just it's a road car with a half cage, like very low cost, like, standard brakes and everything, kind of as you sort of experience the Mini, because you've already experienced what it's capable of mechanically. That car, as you drove it, was standard.
Yes.
Barring the JCW kit, which obviously is still an official thing, it's standard. And it's already massively capable.
Hugely.
More than capable enough, I think, for people to really get a feel for their first day. And also, having spoken to like Ant when he did the Nürburgring series and things like that, something I'm conscious of, like, you do have to, if you're doing these things, you do have to think there is a possibility something might happen to this car and it might get destroyed, right? And because it's a track day, like, this is just the nature of it, and there isn't really an insurance policy that exists that covers track rental cars, right? So you just have to agree with people that there is an excess to be paid. And of course, if the car itself doesn't cost that much, that means the excess is a lot lower. And if you say to somebody, look, here's a car, by the way, the excess is like $2,000. Yes, it's quite a bit of money, but it's also a lot less than saying, by the way, the excess is like 20.
Yeah. And that was the experience I had at Nürburgring. Just looking at the excesses on these cars put me off taking any of them out. And just to be clear, my experience at the Nürburgring did not involve crashing any cars. It was just the shock of the excesses on some of the cars, even after you have paid an insurance waiver, which is supposed to waive. In most places waives the entire excess, but in these places it simply halved it.
Yeah. And it was what, 500 quid for like 1 or 2 laps or something like that?
Something along those lines.
And my plan, certainly with the cheaper car, is I want it to be like 500-600 quid thereabouts for the car for a day.
Yeah.
So you're like, you can have 2 laps of the ring or a full day. Granted, Blyton Park, not Nürburgring, but in terms of like the time and the getting used to it and everything else, like
you'd be getting 5 to 10 times more track time doing that.
I really do feel like the second car was some basic upgrades, like maybe some slight brake upgrades or nicer discs and pads, maybe even standard suspension still, or slightly uprated with just some cooling stuff.
To be fair, I think just we get some really good discs and pads, and proper fluid. Probably be
seats
enough for that.
And a half cage, even maybe keeping most of the interior carpet and stuff to make it still nice to use on the road. I think it'd be a really good kind of like middle ground for most novices or people who just want to go have out a little fun.
All right then, so over lunch, let's have a look on eBay. Only problem is, do you know what, this is terrible. I am a tart. I want a green one.
Ooh.
Why?
Because it's cool.
Also,
it's sort of, there's a bit of a thing there because you get you have the mean green is the one for the beginners, i.e. the people who are green for track days.
Right, okay.
Also a British Racing Green Mini is just cool as hell. Main thing is, did you enjoy your first track day, Will?
Do you know what? I had so much fun for various reasons. It's just, I felt it was so nice to be out with my friends, yourself and the other people I know there, and strangers who, have come up, been so nice and so kind, and people that were, oh, it's Will, nice to meet you, which is still something I'm getting used to, and also, the venue was great. The people in the cafe were such a laugh, because as I've said before, I am an annoying vegan, but they even catered for me nicely. Just the staff there, the facilities are great, lovely new toilet block, and they're building paddocks and things now, and just it was so nice, and the drive up there and back was nice, and I had a really great time, even if the ceiling did fall down in the hotel room the night before. But
oh god,
that's a different story.
That's a story for another day. But no, overall, I can't wait to do it again and go out there and for this to become a regular thing, and to improve my abilities to build the cars and to see the fruits of our labour going out there. I think that's where some of it will actually be really rewarding, is seeing people go out there and race in the cars we're building and stuff. And once again, I have to give a huge shout out to Omai. He absolutely saved the day by going to get that alternator. And we've just been talking a bit through WhatsApp since then, and he's just a really nice guy as well.
He's
I have
lovely.
time for him. He's a nice guy. So.
And that's what it is. That's what I wanted to build as a social event for people with cars. By the way, also there's a track over there.
And that's exactly what it felt like.
It was just awesome, and I was really loved putting the video together. And since that's come out, we've had a bunch of people sign up for the last day we've got this year. We are looking at doing more tracks next year. If anybody's got any idea of a track that we can hire that's not obscenely priced, because that's the big problem, most of them for running the format that I want to run with low numbers, most of them just don't work out. I mean, to do what we did at like Snetterton, for example, I'd have to be charging like £600 or £700 a ticket, and it's just not going to work. But I am convinced there are some other tracks out there that will work, and we're looking forward to it, because this is just another social thing that we're getting to do, and I'm really looking forward to it. So if you want to know any more about that, please follow the links in the description down below. There are, as of the time of recording, still a few spaces left for the last day, but they're going pretty quick. But regardless, if you're not able to join us this year, we hope you can at a future event. And even if you want to just come along and say hello, you're very welcome to do so. I think, gentlemen, that is it. Time to wrap up yet again another episode of the Radiator Arms. So from myself, from Ant, and from Will, it's a thank you, and we'll see you for the next one.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.